Hello, children, and welcome to a new chapter Gandhiji Leads the Nation. Now, one of my favorite quotes of Gandhiji is Be the change that you want to see in the world. What is your favorite Gandhi quote? Just let us know and comment below. We all know that after returning to India in 1915, Gandhiji traveled to various parts of the country and he wanted to know more about the people of our country, and he was really shocked by what he saw. He saw that people were very, very poor, and there were a lot of social evils in our society, like caste system, which kept the people of our country divided and backwards. So he realized that this is why they were not developing. So Gandhiji was very sad to also see the low caste people who were called as untouchables, and these untouchable people were really treated very, very badly. So he realized that in order to unify the people of India, social evils like this had to be removed, and he really worked towards his aim. So he renamed these untouchables as Harijans, which means the people of God. So what is he trying to say? That we are all equals, we are all people of God. There's no such thing as a higher caste or an upper caste and a lower caste, Dalit, untouchables. Nothing like that exists. We are all equal. And because of this, he quickly gained support and respect from all the common people of India, and he became very, very popular. Now, during the same time, the British came up with Rowlatt Acts. You might already know that after the First World War ended, the British became even more harder and harsher towards the Indians. Now, after the First World War, they started imposing fresh taxes so that they can compensate all the losses that they faced through the war, and also they passed a set of new laws to suppress the Indians. And this was the time that Gandhiji launched his Satyagraha movement. Now, you must know that Satyagraha is a way of protesting against injustice in a non-violent method. So, in 1919, the British passed a new set of laws called the Rowlatt Acts, and through this act, they could arrest anybody without even trial. So whether you are guilty or whether you are innocent, if the British wants to arrest you, they will just arrest you, no questions asked. So because of this, Gandhiji asked the people to oppose these laws. He said this is just plain injustice, and several demonstrations and meetings were held all over the country, and by then Gandhiji's Satyagraha also had millions of followers. So on April 1919, a public meeting was held in Jallianwala Bagh at Amritsar. And at Jallianwala Bagh, thousands and thousands of men, women, and children came and assembled there for the meeting. Now, what happened there? Something very grave, something very sad in the history of India happened there. On the orders of General Dyer, all the British soldiers blocked the only entrance to the Bagh. This Jallianwala Bagh had just one entrance. So, on orders from General Dyer, who's this, they all blocked the only entrance, and they open fired for the next 10 minutes at the unarmed crowd. Nobody in the crowd had anything to protect themselves or defend themselves. So, they just started shooting at all the people inside Jallianwala Bagh. Now, because of this, thousands and thousands of people were killed. Many of them were injured. So many of them, trying to save their lives, they went and jumped into the well that was there inside Jallianwala Bagh and ultimately drowned to their death. So this was an incident which nearly shocked the entire nation. The whole of India was really shocked by this, and many British officials were also shocked by this act. And because of this, Dyer was forced to resign in March of 1920. And unfortunately, in July of 1920, he was pardoned by the House of Lords in Britain. So though he has done something so unforgivable, he was still pardoned in 1920 July, and he was let go. So because of this, Gandhiji thought that he must come up with a better and more stronger movement to oppose against the British. So he came up with the non-cooperation movement. So the shooting and the British government's attitude towards India convinced Gandhiji and the people of India that India must become independent. We must be in a position to rule our own country. So Gandhiji launched the non-cooperation movement, and he asked the people of India not to cooperate with the British. So what happened because of this? Many Indians working for the British government quit. They left their jobs. Lawyers started boycotting courts. They refused to go into courts. And even children who were put into British government school were all withdrawn. So they did not allow even their own children to go into British schools. And throughout the country, men, women, and children sat on the streets and blocked all the streets. So you can see here, this is an example for non-cooperation movement, how people of India got united to fight against the British. And they refused to get up even if they were beaten by the police. Now, because of this, Gandhiji was arrested several times, but the British were forced to release him again and again. And in 1922, unfortunately, non-cooperation movement that happened in Chauri Chaura in Uttar Pradesh got really violent. And some people set a police station on fire at Chauri Chaura, and 22 policemen died there. And Gandhiji considered this a failure to non-cooperation movement because he thought that this would be successful only if people used non-violent ways. So he called off the non-cooperation movement. And as usual, he was arrested by the British and put into prison. But the one really good thing about non-cooperation movement is that during this movement, many young leaders joined the freedom struggle. And young leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, and Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. So these were three prominent leaders who joined the freedom struggle. So once non-cooperation movement did not get success, Gandhiji came up with another movement. Now Gandhi is a man who is not going to give up unless and until he gets freedom to his motherland. So he launched the civil disobedience movement. So this was launched in 1930. So what is civil disobedience movement? He told the Indians to refuse to pay taxes. He said, we don't have to pay taxes, especially something very unjust that the British made India pay taxes on salt, where you can produce salt for very cheap prices. They made sure that we paid taxes even on salt to the British government. And they passed a law called as the Salt Law. And this forbid Indians from making their own salt. So Gandhiji decided to start the civil disobedience movement by breaking this unjust law. So what did he do? He organized a peaceful march from the Sabarmati Ashram, which is in Ahmedabad, to Dandi, which is on the seashore. And he named this as the Dandi March. Now, if you see Dandi March, at Dandi, Gandhiji and his followers made salt by evaporating seawater. They said, if you want us to pay salt taxes, we won't even buy salt from you, we will make our own salt. So because of this, again, the British became pretty wild and they arrested Gandhiji. But civil disobedience movement spread throughout India. Everywhere at the coastline, people started making their own salt and opposed from giving these taxes on salt. Now soon, because of this, the British wanted to make some changes in the way India was governed. They realized that they can't go on that way forever. So what they did was, in 1928, a committee was organized under Sir Simon, and they called it as Simon Committee, and these people began working on the changes that had to be brought in. But a strange thing was that there were no Indians in this Simon Commission. So this made Indians very, very angry. They thought, to govern India, how can they not have any Indians at all in the commission? This was not fair. So they decided that they will boycott the commission and staged demonstrations and started shouting slogans as to Simon, go back. They started shouting on the streets saying Simon, go back. So you can see here, these are two images of the protests back then, where people are protesting and saying Simon, go back. You have no business here. We know how to run our own country, so you just go back. And the Congress now decided that they will demand for Purna Swaraj. As I spoke to you earlier, I told that initially Congress just focused on social evils. They wanted to first rid the country of social evils. So at this point, when Simon Commission came in, they decided that they will demand for Purna Swaraj, that is complete independence for India. Matter escalated when the Second World War started. Now, British arrested tens and thousands of people and couldn't crush the movement of Simon Go Back. So, what they did, they finally were forced to introduce some reforms. So, in 1935, British passed the Government of India Act, and due to this act, several elections were held throughout the country, and the Congress was the one that won in most provinces and they formed the government. But the catch was that the power still remained in the hands of the British. And when the World War started in 1939, the British just declared war on India's behalf without even consulting the Indian leaders. This made Indian leaders very angry, and in protest to this, the Congress ministries in many provinces resigned. They just quit their jobs. And Congress declared that India would not join the war unless British granted them complete independence. So they said, British, you please get out from here, only then we will tell whether we're going to participate in the war or not. So they held several meetings, but unfortunately it failed, and Gandhiji had to launch the Quit India movement in August 1942. And Gandhiji and other leaders were arrested for this, and there were violent protests all over the country. So what happened? So this freedom fighter named Subhash Chandra Bose came to the rescue. Subhash Chandra Bose was elected the president of Indian National Congress twice, and he was lovingly called as Netaji. And he was pretty convinced that these British will never leave India peacefully. He knew that there had to be something a little more stronger, a little more active for them to really quit India. So what he did was, he went to Japan and he organized an army of 40,000 Indian soldiers. Can you imagine the number, children? 40,000 Indian soldiers. And he named this as Azad Hind Fauj, or the Indian National Army. So he named this Fauj as Azad Hind Fauj. And they fought against the British on the northeastern borders of India. So they started fighting for India's freedom. Now, initially they were successful in pushing back the British, but British had far superior military forces. So British defeated the Indian National Army. So how do you think India became free then? Now, by the end of Second World War, the British realized now that they could no longer keep Indians in their control. So when the Second World War ended in 1945, the Quit India movement and Indian National Army shook up the British, and they agreed to move out of India and started discussions with the Congress and the Muslim League leaders. The divide and rule policy of the British was successful in dividing Hindus and Muslims. And the Muslim League, also under the leadership of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, demanded a separate nation for Muslims. And on 15th of August 1947, India got its independence, but unfortunately it was divided into two nations as India and Pakistan. So if you see the image here, this was before independence. You can see that India had both Bangladesh as well as Pakistan, but after the British rule ended, India was divided. So the Muslims moved to Pakistan while the rest of India remained as it is today. So this really broke Gandhiji's heart, that he failed to unify the people of India. But nonetheless, we became a free country. So let us take a quick recap of what we studied in this chapter. We first looked at the Rowlatt Acts and Jallianwala Bagh massacre and how much of a damage it did and how it shook up the entire nation. We spoke about the non-cooperation movement launched by Gandhiji. and it failed because of the incident that happened in Chowri Chowra in UP, where people set a police station ablaze and 22 policemen died. So Gandhiji called off this movement, and then he launched the civil disobedience movement, which was in 1930 because of the salt laws, where Indians had to pay salt taxes. So Gandhiji organized a Dandi march where people made their own salt at the seashore. Then we spoke about the Simon Commission and how Simon Commission had no Indians, so people started demanding for Purna Swaraj and started shouting slogans called Simon Go Back. Then we spoke about World War II, where the British declared war on India's behalf. So this made Indians very angry, and the Congress pushed for Purna Swaraj, and the Quit India movement was launched in 1935. Now, because of this, the Government of India Act was passed by the British, and there were many elections all over the country, and Congress won at many constituencies. Then we spoke about Subhash Chandra Bose and the Indian National Army. We saw that he realized and he was convinced that British are not going to leave India by peaceful means. So he went on to Japan and organized an army of 40,000 Indian soldiers, and he named it as Azad Hind Fauj, or the Indian National Army. And these people fought for the freedom of India. And finally, we saw how the British had to bow down before the non-violence methods of Gandhiji, and we became a free nation on 15th August 1947. So this is the entire journey of how Gandhiji, the father of our nation, has brought us such a long way and given us the freedom that we enjoy today. So I would like to end the chapter with another quote from Gandhiji, which says, "An eye for an eye will only end up making the whole world blind," which is so true. We can't, just because somebody is violent towards us, if we are also violent towards them, then everybody is going to get damaged. So non-violence is the way of life. So thanks to Gandhiji for teaching us this very important principle of life. Thank you.